All right. It's the Matt Olson episode, but we're gonna be talking about our ex for way too much. It's Braves cast.
Woo! The Braves cast. Woo!
Woo! All right, so I guess before we start this episode, we have to present something. Cole, you have something to share with us?
Don't mind my awful handwriting, but we have the Freddie Freeman swear jar. Every time we mention Freddie Freeman in this episode, I gotta put a penny. I have the giant freaking sack of pennies, and also a hi hat bolt in a bag. And every time we mention Freddie Freeman's name, goes in this jar.
I've got to be completely transparent with the listeners. I have not put the former first baseman of the Atlanta Braves in my notes at all besides this first part, but I guarantee you 100% that at some point during this Matt Olson episode, that name, the double F name, will come up and we'll owe our listeners a penny, and every time we say it, we'll eventually donate to a listener all the pennies. Uh,
How
so
much?
you better listen.
How
You might be the recipient of
Also,
the
Mitch,
Freddie Freeman
I,
swear
s-
jar.
I saw what you did there. We said our former first baseman. That goes in the swear jar too. If you make any reference to
Oh,
our
are you
former
kidding me?
first baseman, you can't be coy about it. Just any reference, indirect. If you sneeze and it has sort of an F sound to it,
I think
we're donating to the
I was
swear jar.
intentional about not writing that into the intro. Saying our ex, but I may as well have just said it. So
That'll
I
be the
I
first
think
one.
that's 3 pennies in the jar.
I'll put 3 in there. Might be
So,
some quarters in here too.
to get into the episode, if you're a Braves fan like me, you might have been disappointed by the Matt Olson season. Coming into the season, he was touted as a very, very good first baseman. He had a 147 WRC plus with Oakland in his last season. He had a low strikeout rate. He had a high walk rate. He almost hit 40 bombs in the Coliseum. Um, when we think about Braves first baseman, he was the logical next player to take the reins. However, if you're also like me, you found yourself in mid September thinking, we just need to bench this man. We need to bench this man. We need to bench this man. Why did we trade for this man? We should bench him. I can't believe we traded all of those prospects. But at the end of the day, once the season was over, Matt Olson had a 3.1 F4 and a 120 WRC plus. So, if you're like me and you got to the end of the season and you saw that stat line, you were probably one, very surprised that he actually had that good of a season, and two, kind of disappointed with the output. Cole, I don't know how you feel. What were your thoughts on the Matt Olson first season?
Yeah, so he came out of the gate swinging. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I remember his April. He was batting like 400. I think
Mm.
until like late April. Um, really made a good first impression. I think that was really important because we were, put yourself in the shoes of a Braves fan in April of 2022. Um, you have basically this giant gaping hole in your heart, and Matt Olson comes on and mends it in a way. Uh, I think he really came up uh, in situations, and unfortunately, the lows got really low. Mitch, you mentioned his September. I'm looking at the notes here. Uh, from August 28th to September 24th, so I mean, this is almost a month here. A -5 WRC plus. I mean, like you
So
said,
essentially,
bench
from
this man.
that month period, the Braves would have been better off putting out a pitcher at first base. Uh, Probably like a Max Fried, maybe a Huascar Noah pitcher,
Yeah.
preferably. But they would have been better off putting a pitcher at first base, and they would have probably got higher production from Matt Olson. The downside of that is that he had a -5 WRC plus while the Braves were going on a playoff run. Thankfully, it didn't hurt. The plus side is that if you take that month out, Olson really did have a really good first season with the Braves, and when you're trying to get over your ex, put a penny in the swear jar.
Freddie
At the
Freeman.
end of the day, the output looked a lot worse than it actually was. And then when you looked at Freddie Freeman's stat line, it made it a lot worse because he should have, been a top 3 MVP candidate. But like I said, if you take that month out, before that massive, terrible slump, he had a 131 WRC plus. In the last 43 plate appearances of the season, he had a 248 WRC plus, including some big homers against the Mets that helped the Braves win the division. So with that in mind, let's look forward to 2023. Cole actually had an interesting, I don't know what even to call this. He decided to look up how first basemen fared after being traded to a new team.
Yeah,
He pulled two big examples.
this is my dumb analytics corner. If you even try to bring these numbers into an MLB front office, they will laugh you to the front door. But I think it's just fun to talk about for the sake of a podcast. So Matt Olson draws comparisons as I would say a top 5 performing first baseman. One of the best first basemen in the game, if you ask me. There were 2 before him who were in similar positions, who got traded from a dumpster fire of a team to a team with playoff aspirations, and struggled in their first year relative to their base. So the first example I have is one Miguel Cabrera. His OPS plus with the Marlins, I think it was his first 3 or 4 years of his career, was 143, which is wicked, just insane. The season after the trade, 130, still good. So he's on the Tigers now, puts up a 130 OPS plus, still good, but obviously way below his career norms. Afterwards, 170 OPS plus goes off with the Tigers, and this is counting his down years too. This is his entire. I might have actually, I say that I might have done from like 2014 to 2017, but I don't think I did. He had some really good.
You're
seasons.
telling me Miguel Cabrera? I feel like we need to double check that in episode.
We might need
Miguel
to double
Cabrera,
check that.
Since that first year, you're telling me he's been a 70% better than league average hitter.
He was really good. He was really good.
Even being the worst player in the league last year.
I feel like if I didn't,
I don't know about that.
Let me check real quick, because I think I feel like if I butter knifed it to like not be this entire like until 2022, I would have said something in the notes. So
I think if it was like 2013, that would make sense.
Let me check.
But for listeners who don't know this, Miguel Cabrera was actually the worst player in the league by Fangraphs last year. I think he had negative 1.5.
All right, I lied. 140.
Great, one of the greatest hitters of all time, but I don't think.
I lied. 143 from 2009. I forgot how early he got traded to the Tigers. 2009 to 2022. So you're right. I did lie, but from 2009 to 2016, what I did was I did 8 years. I did before the extension. That's what I did before they extended Miguel Cabrera, which I think was 2015. That's when he put up the 170 OPS plus. So
I really don't think I have valued Miguel Cabrera appropriately, and I think this is more to Miguel's credit than me underrating him, because I do see him as one of the greatest hitters in the century. That's incredible. I don't think I knew he did that.
Now again,
I knew he was really good, but wow.
Now again, is Matt Olson Miguel Cabrera? No. They have totally different body types. Their swing paths are totally different. Miguel Cabrera is like a first baseman by the loosest terms. I'm pretty sure he was a full-time DH by like 2017. But somebody who I think profiles a little more similarly, just in terms of body type and also athleticism, is Paul Goldschmidt, who his OPS plus with the Diamondbacks was 145, which is insane. Um, season after the trade, 2019, 115. Still good, but sort of similar to Matt Olson. You're expecting more. I mean, you see that 145 OPS plus, you start salivating. After 2019, 157. Won the MVP last year. And this is also a dude who I believe was a lot older than Matt Olson by the time the trade was made. So
Yeah, Matt Olson's still in his 20s, so
yeah,
I think that's another thing I've kind of glossed over. Uh, but yeah, Matt Olson's still a really pretty young player despite all of his experience. Um, and I think when we look into next year, I think one thing that we have to remember that I often forget about baseball players is that they're real people with real emotions, and Matt Olson was probably coming in. I don't know if you can come in a tougher spot. You're
yeah,
replacing Braves legend Freddie Freeman, another penny in the swear jar. Um, you're an Atlanta native, so you're coming home. You're replacing an all-time Braves great, and Braves fans, myself included, and I try not to get too emotionally attached to players. I think this was one of the hardest times for a fan to see a player leave, especially going to a team that we are not, big fans of in terms of rivalry. And so Olson was coming in, and I have to say, like, as much grief as I gave Olson last year, some of it warranted, some of it not. He didn't do anything that showed that, you know, he
and
was being weighed down by the pressure.
and
Maybe the performance, was tough, but
and
go ahead.
like, and this is a fan thing. This isn't. I know we're angling on the Matt Olson, him personally. But this is a fan thing. We all did it. You don't lie to us. We know you did it. We did it too. We had the Matt Olson versus Freddie Freeman tracker on the entire year. I mean, we were everybody, like even non-Braves fans, were comparing them throughout the year. Freddie Freeman had a better year than Matt Olson.
A lot better.
A lot better. I mean, Freddie Freeman had like one of the best years of his career. And Matt Olson had, I would argue, one of the worst since he became, besides 2020, which we don't talk about, but one of the worst since he became a full-time player. Does this mean that Freddie Freeman is forever going to be better than Matt Olson? No. I mean, it just means that he had a better year last year. And I think as time goes on, from, again, the fan perspective, we're going to compare those two a lot less. Each player will become more cemented with his fan base. Each year when Freddie Freeman comes to Atlanta, the tiers are going to get shorter and shorter. Last year, Freddie Freeman had like a full-on mental breakdown on the field.
We are going to make as much money as Freddie Freeman. I think that's 10 pennies in the swear jar in the first minute.
A lot,
So
a lot.
if you want to be as rich as Freddie Freeman, just come into the podcast.
Just literally be our first subscriber gets all the money in the swear jar.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, I should have done my dumb analytics. I should have looked at Matt Olson's performance after that Dodgers series, because that did, at least from a fan perspective, I know players are different, their routines. It did feel like a turning point. It kind of felt like the closing of a chapter, and after that, everybody moved on. I know after that, like Freddie Freeman, like absolutely went off.
Sheesh.
Yeah, I mean he had a.
If you ever want to go off, apparently you just need to fire your agent.
Yeah, he was like he was putting his agent's face on that ball like every time.
It might even for Braves fans' own mental wellness, it might be better if they don't look at what happened to Freddie Freeman. Oh shit. Freddie Freeman's stat line after that series.
That walk rate went down, but man, that slugging went up.
But we're not here to talk about. We're here to talk about Matt Olson. And the reason we bring up Freddie Freeman, God, was so. This person is going to be so wealthy. Whoever gets the swear jar. the reason we talk about him is because Matt Olson really did come into Atlanta in a really tight spot. Um, and I really think that, part of it is he did play 162 games. I don't think Olson needed to play 162 games. He had a day off on September 24th, which is why I mentioned that as the cutoff for the slump. He did end up playing one inning in that game. I think he
Yeah,
really
yep,
wanted to keep that game streak
yep.
going. But after that, breather, he really did light up the Brave, like the pitchers on fire. 248 WRC plus is, even in a short sample size as 43 plate appearances, is nothing to scoff at. So I think one of it was just he felt like he needed to play every day, and I think Matt Olson could have really benefited from a day off or two in between there. And he was dealing with a lot of, like, whether it be homecoming pressure, the previous first baseman pressure. Olson had a really tough season. He also had to, maybe felt like he needed to live up to that big contract that he signed. Yeah. If for listeners, I think Cole in the past 2 minutes has put in,
You referenced it.
I
You
don't know,
referenced it.
15 pennies.
We'll count at the end of the
Uh,
episode. It's a lot.
but I do expect Matt Olson to have a better 2023. I think, like Cole was saying, the distance is getting bigger. And Olson, even though for me, if you wanted to go back on House That Hank Built, I said Matt Olson was the biggest disappointment. I don't mean that Matt Olson was a bad player. I had high expectations for Olson, and they might have been too high, and that's probably my fault as a fan.
It's one of those situations where, you know, a I mean a legend. I mean, like a legend in the lore of Braves history left, and we replace him with this guy who, he's out west. He plays for Oakland. This team that we think exists. Like, we think they've played games, and we see his stats. He put up a 911 OPS in 2021. And we're like, oh shit! Like, this guy's real. I mean, we got a guy, like, the best possible replacement, and he was just okay last year. He was fine. He was serviceable. Like, we were dreaming up of 45 plus homers and like a 600 slugging, like, absolutely. And I'm not saying, like, he could still do that. I'm not rolling that out. Like, he's one of those guys, and I know I reference, like, we know who he is. I think Matt Olson can, like, blow past our expectations next year or in the coming years. Something I also want to mention too is he was really clutch for us. We mentioned the Met series. I think he homered twice during it. I mean, he homered, like,
Yeah.
pivotal spots. 2 outs, RISP, 879 OPS. What is classified as high leverage situations, 859 OPS, like, well above his baseline last year. Which I think is important. He was really good in the playoffs for us as well. I know it was just 12 plate appearances or 12 at bats, like 15 plate appearances, but he was one of the only guys who performed for us. Maybe he was one of the only guys who didn't have a stomach bug, but that's important to me. I mean, to me, we'll talk about it probably, like, in the Albies episode. There's some guys that you never see come up in big spots. They always strike out or just fall to the pressure. Matt Olson's not one of those guys. I mean, he's cold-blooded, at least from what we saw last year, and especially playing, for his hometown, for a crowd like Atlanta. I mean, I know we're not New York. I know we're not Chicago. I know we're not Los Angeles, but we can get pretty rowdy. I mean, we will boo players. I mean, we will like, be savages. I mean, we can do that. We're capable of that. To me, that's really important, and he has that, that lethalness to him. Do you want to talk about a swing for a little bit? Because it weirds me out.
Yeah,
It
so
weirds me out.
to to frame this before we talk about Matt Olson's swing, Cole and I didn't play high school baseball. I'd like to use the excuse that my high school team didn't have baseball,
It's a good
but to be
excuse.
completely honest, had they had baseball, I wouldn't have been good enough. Um, we are fans who love baseball. We didn't cut it as baseball players.
I was
There's a lot of stuff about.
I was the worst player for the Melonheads. I struck out on 3 pitches, and I had like negative infinity outs above average in center field.
You really should have used the no swing philosophy and just seeing how that would take
Yeah, the
what that
catcher the
would have
catcher
done for
was
you.
calling balls and strikes. Maybe he would have felt bad for me and just like let me give me.
Yeah, you should have just held that bat on your shoulder. But I think Matt Olson has one of the weirdest swings I've ever seen. Um, I I grew up, watching Julio Franco, Gary Sheffield, Craig Counsell. Not on the Braves, but Craig Counsell has one of the weirdest batting stances you will ever see. Uh, I know Olson doesn't stand on his tippy toes. He doesn't wag his bat where you're wondering how he doesn't break his wrists every time he gets up to plate. But Olson really extends his hands right over home plate, and he made adjustments as the season went on. He started holding his bat closer to his body. But I'm curious, uh, what you think, Cole, of this long batting stance that he has.
It's uh, it's odd, and when I say odd, I don't mean bad. Like he's getting paid like millions of dollars a year to play baseball. It works for him. Um, it's funny because you go from Freddie Freeman, who to me had one of the most controlled swings you'll ever see. I mean, it basically was like, um, not a pendulum, but it's like if you ever just like snap your fingers, like that's what his swing felt like or looked like to me. Just that like putting pressure on 2 points and then just you know both of them going full force. As but the potential energy becomes kinetic energy. With Matt Olson, it's almost like the opposite. It's almost like a rubber band, um, which I guess is like the same philosophy as snapping your fingers, but and it almost looks like he tracks the ball like with his hands, like while he's swinging. If you look at him, it's like he kind of like reacts. Like that's the first part of his body to react. As soon as the pitch leaves the pitcher's hand. Um, it's just interesting. Like it's one of the most unique swings I've never seen anything like it. Same with Freddie Freeman. I've never seen anybody swing like that. Um, I don't think it's what they're going to be teaching you in Little League ball. Like that's just something you uh, kind of just get comfortable with like on your own and just tell your coaches like, hey, this is how I do it. Kind of similar with like Trent Grisham, where he basically just like puts like his hands like over each other and just like swings it like a wiffle ball bat. Um, I mean, it works for him. Obviously, he's built a career off of it. It's just, if you're a new Braves fan or new to baseball, definitely pay attention to how he swings the bat. Yeah, it's super arm heavy too, which most, especially left-handed batters, I noticed. Like obviously, power's coming from your legs, but for me, it's almost looks like it's all coming from his arms. I know it's not, but that's just
I
what it looks like.
Yeah, two in the jar. But one thing I've noticed
Oh,
with
yeah,
Olson is that during that slump, it looks like the pitchers were able to just throw high fastballs, and his arms weren't able to catch up on
yeah.
them. Again, it's worked for him for the past 5-6 years. He still was a well above average hitter, but it might be something to keep an eye on longevity wise if he continues to have that long arm batting stance. Because it did look like it was hurting him, August 28th
Yeah.
to September 24th, for instance. I don't know if he's going to go back to the same short arm approach that he had for the last,
Well,
2 weeks.
that's what I liked about Freddie Freeman is that his swing was slump proof. I mean, the only times I can recall him having a slump was because he had bad batted ball luck. But he was never, he was always consistent. His strikeout, like if you look at his like rolling strikeout average, his rolling walk average, like his rolling exit average or exit velocity, the only times it went down was like the end of 2018 because his wrist was bothering him, and the end of 2019 because he had loose bodies in his elbow. But it was a swing that like wasn't affected by fatigue. It wasn't a swing because it was just so like simple. And with Matt Olson, it's an adjustment for us because it's not a slump proof swing. If his timing's off, like he can't, there's no like, oh, hey, just, shoot it to left field. It's very all or nothing. So it is going to be something to pay attention to. And, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again this year where, when the highs are high, they're high. But when the lows are low, I mean, he could be like an 0 for 9 series candidate.
At the end of the day, though, I'm probably one of Matt Olson's biggest haters. I guess I should put that in my bio somewhere. I'm really excited about Matt Olson for 2023.
I am too.
I don't think we saw the real Matt Olson last year for numerous reasons that we've already mentioned. I think he's coming into the season, refreshed. I think he does bounce back. I think he might have that, very anecdotal, but after the first season trade, first baseman fatigue thing that Cole, you discovered. And so over under 40 homers, what do you think?
Man, this is so. I was thinking about this when we were talking about the stolen base game. Like, we don't know what the ball's going to be. I know you said that it's going to be the ball from last year. I'm going to say under safely just because I don't think there might be like 2 or 3 40 homer seasons and all of them will be next year. So I'm going to go safely under.
I'm gonna be bold. I've made a conspiracy theory. I don't know if that made the episode that I think the balls will be deader. Again.
Yeah.
Because the bases and they want to drive action. Olsen still with somewhat deadened balls in 2022 had a down season and he had 34 homers. If you had like cold called me before I got the stats, I thought he had closer to 28 homers. He had 34 homers in a down year. I'm going to make the bold prediction that he actually hits over. I do love the chop house. I do love those short homers when they come off the bat of Braves players. I think he just barely gets over that 40 home run mark.
Just remember, he's never hit over 40. I know he was in the Coliseum, but that is a bold prediction.
It's a bold prediction. I did say bold prediction. I have been very contradictory. I've hated on Matt Olson, but I do think, 40 home runs is in the cards for 2023.
And I say that I still think he's going to have a much better year. The strikeouts have to go down. Like, they will go down. I was just looking at like 170 strikeouts last year. I didn't even realize it was that high. I mean, obviously he played all 162 games. So, that number is 6 out, maybe a little bit more than it should. But I mean, this is the same guy who put up a 16.8% strikeout rate in 2021. So I do think he's going to have
Do you actually want to cover that real quick, though?
The strikeouts?
Because the strikeouts. So in 2021, Olson had a 16.8% strikeout rate. This is what the Braves acquired him to be. But, if anything, that might be an outlier because before that, he never had, aside from his 11-game stint in 2016, he never had a strikeout rate lower than 24.7. Last year, he had a 24.3% strikeout rate, which is a lot more in line with, 2017 to 2020 than it is with 2021. And I know he credited his reduction in strikeouts to the Tommy La Stella machine, but clearly they went back up. So are you a believer in the 2021 strikeout rates or the 2022?
I'm going to do the cop-out answer and say somewhere in between. I think it would be more around the 20%. He was one of those guys that I think is continually improving each year. Strikeout rate is one of those. I mean, this might sound kind of stupid, but like maturity stats, and like to me, 16.8% in a full season like doesn't scream fluke to me. Sustainable, maybe not, but I don't think I think he's going to be more around like 19-20%.
Yeah, I've looked at these numbers. I check Fangraphs daily during the season, so it's kind of hard to not. But I don't know. Ronald Acuna Jr. has a 24% strikeout rate. Ronald Acuna Jr. We'll talk about him later. Is a very good player. 24% strikeout rate doesn't kill you.
Yeah, it's not.
Or
It's
your
not
chances at being a very good
yeah,
player.
it's not terrible.
So it's not. I don't think I'm prefacing this because I don't think this goes against my prediction that Matt Olson has a very good season. But I think I'm skeptical of his strikeout rate being below 23-24%. I know a full season at 16.8. It's really hard to fake it, but the Braves have a swing hard philosophy.
Yeah, and also
and he did kind of regress back to his career norms.
I know it's going to be a
past season.
balanced schedule, but thinking about the pitching in the NL East, I mean, 2021, he was facing against Angels pitching, Rangers pitching, so maybe you have a point there. I don't think it's going to be that low. By the way, for reference, Freddie Freeman's strikeout rate from 2017 to 2022 is 16.8, right on the dot, just with Matt Olson's 2021. I'll just let that sit.
We will get over you someday, Freddie.
I'll just let that sink in.
You.
So yeah, obviously that's an elite. I mean, that's an elite rate. But I still think 24% is high for where he is in his career at this moment.
All right. Well, any closing thoughts, Cole?
No closing thoughts. Just I'm gonna do the song. Doing Matt and Kim, the indie pop band from the 2000s, 2010s. If you like go to a coffee shop or have ever been to a coffee shop, you've heard a Matt and Kim song. And we're going to do Let's Go. Because, like, let's go, Matt Olson. Like, the second season is a Brave. Like, let's fucking go, dude. You got this. We believe in you.
We got this.
So, yeah, that was... sorry, I interrupted.
No, I was just... This song and Daylight are the only other Matt and Kim songs that I know. And I thought both were appropriate because,
Matt.
It's the Daylight from Matt Olson, but Let's Go is it's got that fandom punch behind it. So
that's also the the current go-to cheer for players. If you watch any John Boy video,
seen a John Boy breakdown,
yeah. All right. Do you have any final thoughts?
You can at me and tell me that you are a bigger Matt Olson hater than I am, but you are obligated to follow me at Minsub4. You can also tag Cole at No More Fielders on Twitter. And make sure you follow us on all social medias as well.
And before we go, we do have to count how many donations we made to
I'm scared.
The jar. It feels like a handful. All right. We're going to watch me count this live on YouTube. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
That's brutal, man.
Feels appropriate. Feels appropriate. I'm dropping pennies everywhere.
If you also miss Freddie Freeman, let us know.
Watch the Sad Man video. It has like less than 10,000 views at the time we're recording this.
I don't get how.
That is one of the best videos I've seen like in my life.
I was running on the treadmill watching, and I was almost about to cry watching the Braves World Series highlights. That's how good Sad Man
therapeutic.
Is at living up to his channel name.
There's like a line that he says that actually I think 5 Points like tweeted it and it hit home. It really hit home. So please watch that video. I'll also link that in the YouTube description. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I would have felt